Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today I have another wonderful guest on. As ongoing subscribers know, often on this podcast, it's just me sharing ideas and insights, best practices, things I'm running out there. Occasionally, however, I am blessed to be able to interview subject matter experts, authors, speakers, thought leaders, social scientists. These people share their knowledge to help us all build relationships and understand why things are happening the way they're happening. Today, I have on with me David Knorr. He's the Senior Leadership Board Advisor and Executive Coach on innovation growth and strategic relationships. He's written a number of books, two of which I have. The third one I haven't been able to get. I think it's three: Relationship Economics and Curve Benders, How Strategic Relationships Can Power Your Non-Linear Growth in the Future of Work. David Knorr, welcome. You go by Knorr, right?
Yeah, Frank, good to be with you.
Thank you. Well, let's jump right in because I tell people relationships are as old as dirt, which is not true, but obviously, certainly the humanity is built on relationships, and small business has embraced this forever. Corporate America is coming to the party. Why are they late to the party? What's pushing them along? I mean, that's really the crux of what you're doing, is trying to get big businesses to think like small businesses.
Sure. So for your audience, I think it'd be useful to know that I'm originally from Iran. And I wrote about it in Relationship Economics. I didn't get it then, Frank, but I get it now that at 5 or 6 years old, my dad walking me through bazaars of Iran wasn't just to get what mom needed at the house or things that he wanted around the house, but dad also had a relationship list. And he made sure whether it was access to a plumber or a politician, he was very intentional about the relationships that he wanted to build and nurture. And your comment about small business, you're right. They as a swath of the business population, they're fundamentally in the relationship business. They've leveraged relationships for a long time to acquire that customer, get referrals, grow their business. And as you build and scale a business, operational excellence kind of takes over. Operational efficiency takes over, and processes and procedures and playbooks. And by definition, the organization becomes more complex. And what happens is they build this perfect execution box.
Right.
And in the pursuit of that avenue, if you will, they forget that we're all, regardless of what any and every one of us do, we're fundamentally all in the relationship business. And I bring up the Iran comment because the rest of the world builds relationships first from which they do business. As Americans, or maybe even Western cultures, we're so focused on the checklist and the project plan and the pipeline and all of that, that if and only if the business part works, we may ask someone about their family and kids and what they did this past weekend. So this is year 20 of our business. And for the last 2 decades, you're exactly right. I've been coaching, I've been teaching, I've been speaking to, I've been advising basically these organizations that beyond intellectually understanding that relationships are important, only when they prioritize it, only when they quantify it, only when they become intentional in the relationships they choose to invest in, will they see those results in their business. And if you think about it a second, regardless of whose logo is on the business card, most of these leaders run a small team. They run an organization. They run basically a small business inside a large structure.
Right.
And it really helps them. It behooves them and their teams to understand, you want to get anything else done within this behemoth of a company or within the market, you better prioritize building and nurturing relationships across functions, business units, geographies, departments, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I had a small stint in a very large accounting firm, and there was a lot of lip service to breaking through silos and, cross. But when push came to shove, and this is the 80s, there's only so many dollars the client has to pay, and we want it hitting our P&L and not the other department's P&L. It was a challenge, and I guess it's easier said than done. Yeah. What do you find is the hardest part of, if you will, teaching old dogs new tricks?
Yes, I was going to say, you're going to cringe to hear that, 40 years later, that's still the case, right?
Yeah.
There's political jockeying, and there's, people are playing all kinds of games inside these large companies. And I remind people that buildings have no relationships, right? There's no relationship between business cards. It's individuals. And one of the things that you talk about old dog, new tricks, it's getting beyond intellectually understanding that relationships are important, right? Frank, I speak to no one who would argue that relationships are important. Yet inevitably, let's just take this global pandemic the last couple of years. One of the first things I did is I made a list of my top 100 business relationships. And I use this antiquated device called the telephone, right? You hit these numbers, and a person picks up on the other side, and they actually, talk to you. And I didn't try to sell them anything. I called and said, how you doing? And how are things going? And what's working? What are you hearing? What are you struggling with? How can I help? And I'm not in the PPE business, but I knew some people that had extra and other people that were looking for some. I knew that some of my relationships were laying people off, where other people were looking. Think about a hotel business, right?
Yeah.
Shutting hotels down while other people are looking for people in the same town.
Yep.
And when you connect the two of them, what you demonstrate, not just talk through it, is that you're fundamentally in the relationship business. And by the way, at some point, they're going to say, thank you. They're going to say, how can I help you? Or I need your help with something. And that's where my businesses come from. And knock on wood, boomed the last 2 years, believe it or not, because I made that investment. Now, ask most of your audience members to make a list of their top 50 or 100 relationships. I'm betting a lot of them would struggle.
Yeah.
Because we're not intentional about the relationships we choose to invest in.
Well, I think it's not even struggling with the list, but even going beyond the list. And so how do I kick off that conversation? I mean, you have enough of a relationship with your people that you could say, how's it going? And it wouldn't seem out of left field. For a lot of people, it's always been so transactional, right?
Absolutely. So let me give your audience 3 tips.
Please.
3 tips. I actually wrote about this in several books. I call it the Jerry Maguire business model. And by that, I mean, based on the film, right? Yep. Everybody wants more. Let's go get more. I want more social media contacts. I want more customers. I want more leads in my database. I think that's the wrong approach. What if we focused on fewer, but we build deeper, more meaningful relationships? What if you focused on fewer customers, but really became invaluable to them? So number one, unequivocally, start with your existing relationships. Start with people who you already know. They like you. They trust you. You've delivered value to them. And by the way, if you think about relationships for a second, they come from great conversations. Great conversations come from you asking great questions. So number one, make a list of your most valuable, of your existing customers, existing relationships. Number two, reach out to them with a list of great questions. Hey, listen, over the last couple of years, through this pandemic, what have you learned that you think is going to stay with you? How's your business changing? How's your business evolving? What's going well for you? Where are you struggling? Take what you do, whatever products or service you sell, out of the equation for a second and lend a hand, because it's a heck of a lot easier to ask, have your hand out and ask for something if you start with that investment. So if you better understand and invest the time and effort to get to know them, get to know their business, get to know what really ticks in their business, what makes their business tick. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm always thinking, who else does Frank need to know? How else can I connect the dots between where Frank is today and where Frank is trying to go? And if I become a value add in that equation, Frank's going to now more than be willing to take my calls and return my calls. And at some point say, Nor, thank you. That's very kind of you. What can I do to help you?
Right.
Frank, glad you asked. Here's the list of 2-3 things I could use your help with. That's how you do this intentionally. Not tit for tat. I'm not trying to teach your audience how to be more manipulative. I'm trying to say if you invest in fewer, but create more meaningful, more authentic, more real, deeper relationships, it's amazing what those people will do for you.
Yeah, no, we're hardwired for that, aren't we? I mean, it's part of human nature.
Unequivocally, yes. Yeah. And by the way, there's some fundamental laws in business relationships that I've been a student of this for some time. When somebody does something for you, right? First thing is gratitude, right? The other person should say thank you. If they don't, your yellow flag should go up.
Right.
Number 2 is reciprocity. Maybe not today, next week, or next month, but at some point they should say, what can I do to help you? How can I be an asset to you? Again, if they don't, your yellow flag should go up. Number 3 is this idea of pay it forward. None of us are an island. If you don't observe them doing for others, investing in others, helping others, nurturing relationships with others, your red flag should go up because they don't get it. They don't get that this whole ecosystem works based on, is predicated by all of us investing in each other.
Oh, totally. Well, I guess the one thing old dogs do tricks. What's the big challenge? Is it money? Is it?
Yeah, believe
culture?
It or not, it's time.
Okay.
It's making the time. What does everybody tell you? I'm busy, right? So it's, if you think of relationships as yet something else you have to do, you'll never get good at it.
Yeah.
Conversely, if you integrate it into all that you do, you become a lot better at it. So, and this doesn't happen overnight. It just takes a little bit of practice, right? First and foremost, again, if you think of the last 2 years, I'm going to give your audience 3 tips. We've all been isolated. We've all, a lot of us have been working from home or remote or whatever. And a lot of small businesses have struggled or suffered, and people and, PPP loans and on and on and on. Start by asking, how are things going? Start with great conversation. Start with we're slowly kind of coming back together again. Could your small business create some sort of a gathering? Could you gather some of your best customers? We're doing this. We're gathering our best customers with some of our prospects so they can kind of get to know each other. And I've always believed people gather for 2 reasons: content, what can I learn? And community, who else can I meet? Regardless of what business you're in, you have existing customers, you have prospective customers. Is there an opportunity for you to get them together? Number 2, what have you learned during this pandemic that should stay with you, should elevate, should think about your business differently? I'm always testing new ideas, new services. I'm always asking my clients, above and beyond what I do, what else are they struggling with? What else are they trying to do? Do I want to be in the recruiting business? No, that's not what I do. Let me introduce you to somebody else that I think can help you with that. By the way, I'm going to build an assessment to make that recruiting that much more efficient, that much more effective, as an example. So building new products and services, testing new products and services makes you that much more relevant. Third one, cascade this down. Teach your other people. I've got 20 and 18-year-old kids, regrettably, and this has been one of the banes of my existence. This isn't taught in our schools. This isn't part of anybody's new hire training program. This isn't large companies, medium companies, small. Nobody talks about this. It's almost like assumed you already know how to do this. So as a small business owner, take the person in the warehouse, take the person at the front desk, take that person who's in their first job or their 5th job under your wings and teach them empathy, teach them patience and grace, teach them those things that makes relationships that much more productive, that much more impactful if you model that behavior and coach and mentor others to practice those behaviors.
Years ago, I was asked to go into a large construction company, very, very large. They got engineers, they got architects, not really the people swinging the hammers and whatnot. And the partners are like, listen, can you get these people to get out there and develop relationships. And the sales cycles on these things are really long. And I kind of went through all the things I talk about with respect to relationships and networking. And I told them, I said, I can come in here and you can pay me to come in here and that's great. And I'll take your money, but none of this is going to stick unless you incentivize these people to do these things. And of course they didn't. And so I guess that leads into my next question. How are you getting companies to measure the economics of relationships and compensate it? Because that seems to me to be the way to kind of pull it through.
You bring up a great point. Again, I'm a big believer that we're all products of the advice we take. And a mentor drove into me years ago, unless you're willing to inspect what you expect, you should have no expectation that it's going to get done. Right. So you're exactly right. You got to find a way. And there's no cookie cutter approach to this, but you got to find a way to integrate relationships into how you measure people, and exactly right, how you compensate them. So I'm just giving the audience a couple of tips. Ever since my kids were little, they didn't get allowances, they got commission. Because I drove performance-based, right? When you do these things, you get paid a commission, including helping dad sign and ship books and do the stuff around the house. And they got commission. They didn't get allowances. So similarly, incorporate relationship questions into your interview process. Figure out how they think about relationships. Figure out, do they come to your company with a heart of service or with a heart of collecting a paycheck?
Right.
So incorporate relationship-centric questions into your interview process. Number one. Number two, create a set of metrics. Regardless of what job they're in, customer satisfaction is everybody's job. Customer acquisition, everybody's job. You don't have to be in sales to talk to people and tell them about our business and help grow our business. But as we grow, we want some metrics, and I'm tying some variable compensation into carrots, into individuals, a recognition. I don't think we celebrate enough. I don't think we recognize people enough. I want to put Susie on a table today because 6:00 on Friday afternoon, when she could have easily gone home, she answered that phone call and took care of that customer. And that customer is, over the moon because of the level of service that Susie provided. Put Susie on a pedestal, right? Really celebrate those individuals that go above and beyond to be the ambassadors of your brand, to be the relationship ambassadors of your brand, not through what they say. Anybody can talk about it, but what they do and how consistently they show up.
Great stuff. I guess to kind of circle back and wrap up here, how can the audience help you? How can the audience get a hold of you?
Very kind. So easiest way is you can just Google my name, David Nour, N-O-U-R, or you can go to our website, Nour Group, NOURgroup.com. This month, we're also standing up davidnour.com. So we have a community. We have a private community, nourgroup.com/forum. Come join us. I'm there every day. We talk about these ideas on a regular basis. I don't want anything from your audience. What I want for them is to be what I said earlier, become more intentional in the relationships they choose to invest in. It's an investment every single day. And if you invest intentionally, if you're smarter about those relationships, it's amazing that the return, the dividends becomes in fold. And you'll see great employees who they'll take care of, great customers who will build great partnerships. And that's how they'll contribute to the growth of your business.
I really appreciate your time today. I'll get the link in the show notes. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for joining us on
Frank,
the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.